guys, I'm Leanna Rupert. You might know me as Dirty F and Hippie, and if you're new here, welcome. What's up? How you doing? Happy New Year! I haven't seen you guys in a minute. Happy New Year. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Leanna, which we've already established, so good start. For a little bit of background on me, I have worked 22 years in games, also recently moving over to the TV side. Most recently, you might know from my community management work on the Fallout TV show, which was really dope, and Vox Machina, but also got some really cool stuff that hasn't been announced yet, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into today's topic, which you know what it is about, obviously, because you clicked on the video.
What say we drink to my memory?
I want to provide some context going in, because new year, new me, and I used to have a hardcore policy of not deleting comments or blocking people, but that is a thing of the past. Fuck y'all. I'm taking my piece back, so if you can't control yourself and be respectful in your critique and treat me like a human being, then you will no longer take up the space I occupy. You can take up your own space, but this is my channel, which means it is a space for my opinions, and I am respectful to everyone, so I am asking for the bare minimum, and if that is not achievable, I would urge you to go to therapy.
I said what I said,
and
always. I'm not changing on it, okay? I said what I said. It ain't changing over.
But Dragon Age has been a very controversial topic, and why did I wait this long to do a review? One, it's not really a review. Yes, it is, but it's not at the same time. And I say this because I have a background in games media, and I did professionally review games for many, many, many years. And I didn't hold myself to that strict of a standard this time because I don't really need to. I can just talk about what I enjoyed and didn't enjoy, and I know you guys are gonna flip. And you know me, I don't like to do like scripts or anything like that. You can very clearly tell when I do scripts, you know, it's not bad, it's just, it definitely is different. And for this kind of stuff, I like to just off the cuff it. I do have some notes, which I've already lost, so let me actually see.
1 hour later, 2 hours later, 3 hours later.
Got him. We have found the notes. But yes, so in this one, I want to talk about what I like. There's a lot of stuff I really loved. I dove in and did, I'm on playthrough 4 right now, and very much enjoying it. I think it's honestly one of the best endings of a Dragon Age game. Controversial, I know.
Respect the diabolical.
I feel like I do respect it.
Respect the diabolical.
But before we go in, I just wanted to state that I am going to talk about some of the more spicier topics that no matter what I say, it's going to have some kind of a reaction unless I go by a script of what somebody else has said. I'm not going to do that. So I am going to talk about Taash. I am going to talk about some of the production cycle of the game and just talk about my thoughts, and hopefully you guys dig it, and if not, that's totally cool too. You know, we're all vibing, we all experience things differently. I've played games that other people swear are absolutely perfect and I couldn't get past whatever gripe I had. The difference is when I don't like something, I don't spend all my time dwelling on it. I just move on to something I do like, and I think that that's a trick you learn when you get older, because when you're young you have infinite energy to fight every single battle, and then the older you get you realize how non-productive that is to actually anything of substance, and you learn how to choose those battles, and that is not a battle I'm going to choose. So yeah, so let's get into it. What did I like? Everything. No, just kidding. But I did really like a lot. I think what blew me away the most, what kind of surprised me by how much I liked it the most, was the art style. Because when I first saw it, I wasn't like knee-jerky like some people where it was like, oh my god, that's the worst thing ever, but I definitely wasn't vibing with it at first. And I think I even said this in my reaction video to the trailer, was not sure how I feel about this, but let's pause and wait to see more, because I also understand cinematic intro. You know, it's not going to translate super one-on-one for the playable aspects of it. So it was going to take me a little bit. And then now that I've played through it, I'm so in love with the art style. It's actually really hard for me to go back and play the older ones, which sucks. Because I love playing through the trilogy by itself, like in order through all of the DLC and everything. And my plan was to do that again, especially with the Soulless tie-in. And it was rough. It was rough. Artistically, it was stunning. It also kind of had that darker edge to it, that art style, that I think elevated the story in ways that I appreciated as a player. And it made me experience a lot of the world, because all of the different cities have very different feelings, and some of them felt very familiar. Like, I swear Docktown absolutely reminds me of Kirkwall. It's wild how much that I was getting Kirkwall vibes off of that. but I think that it's a really good evidence of at least how it felt to me was you could tell that not only the devs, but the publisher also took in a lot of that feedback with Inquisition, because as much as I genuinely liked Inquisition despite its pacing issue, the ending was so disproportionately felt to the rest of the game. The rest of the game was this steady climb towards a climax. Like, it wasn't rushed. Obviously, in some areas it was too slow. And then the final sequence just happens out of nowhere, which I like that abrupt surprise, but it didn't last long, and it was over before it was over, and it wasn't super challenging. Like, it didn't feel rewarding to a game that, if you do it all, takes 200 plus hours to beat. And I feel like with the Veilguard, they really took that feedback, because they were able to still create this eagerness in me as a player to explore without it feeling overwhelming or redundant like Dragon Age The Veilguard did, and redundant like Dragon Age 2 did, because Dragon Age 2 basically was a game that was never supposed to exist anyway, but pressure by a publisher made them have to pull a miracle out of their ass, and a miracle they did do. If you're interested in my thoughts on that, I have a video on it already. You should go check it out. I think that it was nice to see a very overt indicator that that feedback was listened to, because I felt like it was done very, very well. It was a sense of wonder and trepidation that at times really elevated my desire to keep playing, and one more mission, one more quest, and that's a good feeling to have, especially the older you get and the less time you have. Like, I don't have the time to game like I used to, and I don't mean to sound like an old yells at the cloud type.
You are an old man and a fool!
Busy. I'm fucking busy. Let's get to the point. And to me, that did that. And I think they did it really well with the pacing, and I feel like they did a really good job with balancing darkness and levity, which is something I'm going to go a little bit more in detail with in a little bit.
Old, please.
I think they did a very, very good job with that, especially when you have to keep in mind, this game went through some shit. They restarted production cycles numerous times, and the fact that so much so, I think you guys might even remember it if you've watched my stuff before. I've said, like, I would be shocked if it came out by 2024, and not only did it came out with 0 bugs. This was the first Dragon Age game I've ever played that didn't have any bugs, and I kept waiting for it, because usually with BioWare games, if it's a bug, it's probably going to be a bigger one, and nothing. It was super smooth. It was just phenomenal in every single way, and I really liked that. As much as it sucks, especially the layoffs, and that's something I'm going to dive into a little bit more when talking about Lucanus's character and some of the romances, but the fact that with even all of that, like, this is a miracle team, and that's why I think all the layoffs hit so many of us so hard, because they were laying off legacy talent, the person that gave us all of our favorite characters. Mary Kirby was behind Lucanus, and like, there was just all of these elements behind the scenes that should have made this game not come out at all, or at very least not have a shot. And while I do recognize and respect that some people did not vibe with it, I would never tell somebody how to feel. I'm genuinely sad that they weren't able to find that connection that a lot of us that did enjoy it did, because it seems like the people that really did enjoy it really, really enjoyed it, even with our criticisms, which I think that's good. You can love something and still criticize it and hold it to a standard, and you can not like something and recognize good qualities too. You don't have to be an all-in-one bucket. Like, don't limit yourself like that. That's weird. Stop it. Anyways, let's talk about layoffs. That's actually a great intro into this. There's elements of the game that you could see were a little bit rushed or had to be closed in, and particularly with how some of the quests intertwined with each other and how character familiarity evolved. But the one thing that really kind of sucked was the changes to the romance, because I recognize that not everybody cares about romance in games. For me, I'm a very immersive RPG player. That's why I can have so many playthroughs and not get burnt out. Like, every character I make has a full character sheet, likes, dislikes, background, joking style, anger style, dreams, like, everything is so detailed going in. That's why I take character creator very importantly.
What is wrong with you?
Great question.
So anything to do that allows for more immersion, like romances, is something that I see as a really big win. And while I did enjoy the romances, Lucanus and Emmerich are probably my favorites. I'm doing a Nev run now, which I'm really excited about. But having that difference, I noticed stuck with me even in my replays, because in previous Dragon Age games, you make a love interest. You can flirt with each other throughout the game. You can have those little moments. Like, one of my favorites was with Dorian. You could go get a little smooch from him, especially with his character, and fallacies with public sense of adoration and public affection. And just those, even in like Mass Effect, remember Mass Effect 2, you could snuggle on your bed with your little cutie. And I think that was really important for making that relationship feel, not to keep beating a dead horse, but immersive, because that is one thing that makes Mass Effect and Dragon Age so beloved, is that it's not only a great gaming experience, but it's an immersive in a way where you genuinely care about the characters and they feel real. They feel like, that's what I always joke when I replay Mass Effect or Dragon Age. I'm like, it feels like I'm going home. And a big part of that is those minute character interactions. And with romances, they felt very for everyone. And that's not something Dragon Age has ever done. Like, Dragon Age Origins was basically porn, and it was great. And Dragon Age Inquisition, absolutely. Dragon Age 2 had the fade to black, but still you had that sense that they were connecting on multiple levels. And with Veilguard, that wasn't so much the case. Had to wait for the payoff till the very end, which kind of sucked. Most noticeably with Lucanus, because again, his writing team was laid off. And a lot of criticism around his character is, why is the character I'm obviously romancing, like we've exchanged equal flirtations.
What we need to do now is get focused and stop pointing fingers. You're a problem. You're a real problem.
Cuddling up with Nev, because Nev and Lucanus were always together, and the way they spoke was very flirtatiously. And if you don't romance either of those characters, they do actually end up getting together, just like Davrin and Bella, and Taash, Bellara.
You're like Bella Swan from Twilight, and I'm like her weird friend who doesn't understand how fabulous her life is because my boyfriend won't spend $4 on tacos.
And Taash and Harding, and Emmerich and Strife, if you don't romance them. If you didn't know that, there you go. And because of that, it felt weird. It felt like the entire game, it almost, with his path, almost felt like you weren't romancing anyone, which is a shame because the few moments that you do have together, it's very cute. And his final romance scene is so sweet. I mean, he just looks at Rook like they hung the moon and stars. Like, it's beautiful. But I would have personally, as a player, myself, like to see a little bit more in-depth interactions like they did in previous games, because to me that did feel well. But that being said, I do really like that they continued on the practice of characters evolving their own relationships. That's been a Dragon Age thing, and I really enjoyed it, especially with Dragon Age 2. But I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed, because it adds to that immersion. You know, in real life, everybody's got their own shit. And even though as the player you are the main character, technically, you're not the only person in that universe. And that's a life lesson if I could tell you that. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I just wish it was a little bit more in depth because it felt pushed aside. I got 2 more gripes and then I'm going back to likes, okay? Because I don't like talking about dislikes. Not because I'm like, oh, don't discuss it. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells and I don't like that. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells. So one other thing I did not like, or I wouldn't say didn't like, it really wasn't that big of a deal, but I would have liked to see more of is, what the fuck did they do to Dorian and to May? Y'all, like, okay, let me talk about this for a second, as if I'm not filming a video to do exactly that. Dorian is my favorite character. He is the reason why I have made so many male Inquisitors. He is by far my favorite character in Dragon Age history, bar none. Like, nobody even comes close. They can try, but nobody has even come close. And as flourished as he is, and his storyline in the Defender Knights anthology, how that was presented, his cameos in the comic books, his intro into Veilguard was so lackluster. And I feel like even just an audio cue could have done well. Some kind of a music escalation that kind of brought him, taking him center stage, because that is Dorian Pavis. He takes center stage no matter what. And even if you wanted to say the argument, well, he's probably grown. No, he didn't. Listen to his dialogue. It's the same sassiness and grandeur, that same defensive armor. Like, he should have had a bigger entrance. I really feel strongly about this for Mavris. Mavris Tilani is a female magistrate. In this game, you meet her as she's a former magistrate, but she is married. She is related to Varric by marriage, and her and Dorian BFFs. She's talked about in Inquisition, and she's also in the books and the comics. Again, please read those. They are so good. And May, in the comics especially, platinum blonde, and she is just like here. She is fucking here. Like, there is nothing that's gonna stand in her way, okay? So then when this meek, mousy, shy-looking character came up, I was genuinely confused. And I remember being like, that dress looks really familiar. Who is this? And then she said who it was, and I was like, wait, no. Like, She had this fried, curly, mousy brown hair. She didn't have like any makeup on, which is fine. You don't need, we're all about it. Well, you don't need to have it. I get it. But like, she had nothing. She didn't even sound like how I thought she was going to sound, which is fine because sometimes we do miss that. But nothing about this character screamed May. None of it. None of it. Not her mannerisms, not her voice acting, not the way she looks, not the way she introed into the series in the game, apart from the comics, not in her discussions, not in how she talks to Dorian, like none of it. Like it felt like such a disconnect that I was so confused by, because I'm like, how do you disregard a character that is so beloved in the hardcore fandom so overtly? That was so bizarre to me, and that is probably the one thing I would say that really bothered me, because I have been saying for years I wanted to see like my little Mei Mei in a Dragon Age game, and we finally got her, and I knew we were gonna get her. I kept any video I ever did with anybody where we were talking about Dragon Age, I was like, there's no way we're not gonna see Mei, especially with the Tevinter anthology. There's no way she's not gonna be in it. So, you know, I got questions. Bioware, what you got against my girl? Huh? What you got against my girl? I will say though, with the characters, I really do like the variety of the characters. Like Balara, I loved her. I loved her quirkiness. I'm a Gemini, so I have two very different sides. They're both me, but one is very introverted, one's very extroverted. The extroverted side, my ADHD kind of goes unchecked, and I will go on these huge TED Talks with just things I find interesting, and I've been told I ramble so much and shut the fuck up and all that stuff for so long, and so I really resonated with her character, and I really resonated with Nev's character too. A very hard life myself. From 5 years old up was a fight for survival, and I don't say that as a joke. And her desperate cling to keeping her kindness and her spirit, despite, especially if you make that choice, you know which one I'm talking about. You can see the effort, and it was appreciated, because when you do fall into that darkness, you suck the air out of the room. That's what I've been told, and people are uncomfortable with that level of sadness, so you learn to kind of mask and channel that sadness into helping others. And it was nice to be able to recognize that in her, even though she's obviously a fictional character, but it was almost healing of like, I recognize it in her, so that was kind of in my way of, I recognize it in myself, like giving myself that grace, which was kind of nice. And Davern, I was not expecting, he was my first romance. I was not expecting him, because I don't like Grey Wardens. I know, unpopular, but I just don't. I don't hate them by any stretch. I'm not like, I don't like you, but it's just like, you're whatever. So I wasn't really expecting much out of him, but he reminds me of like a younger Duncan. And that quickly turned into my first romance. And then I romanced Lucanus, and then I romanced Emmerich, and now I'm romancing Nev. And I did play all the classes too, the mage and the warrior. Surprisingly, I really liked playing the warrior, which was wild, because usually I play mage in these types of games, or rogue, depending. Like Elder Scrolls games, I'll do rogue, but I typically do mages in Dragon Age. And warrior with a necrotic build was filthy. Like I was making bitches explode like it was my paid job. It was great. What? And that kind of ties into the overall feeling of combat for me too. Like I feel like they really perfected combat in this game in a big way. And then, do I wish like we had like some of the odds and ends of being able to get rid of stuff? Yeah.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Also, I don't know why they quit doing the dyeing. I liked the being able to dye your gear that we had in Inquisition. I thought that was really cool, and I'm not really sure why they did that, but I did like that they kept the gifts going, because gift giving in Dragon Age is a special thing. But I really did like the combat. I think Rogue was probably my least favorite, just because I don't have patience, and there was a little bit of a delay in combat, and I'm talking little, like 0.2 seconds, but it's enough to drive me up the fucking wall. But I didn't have that issue with Warrior, and Warrior was really fun, especially in dragon fights, because if you wanted to, or if you absolutely had to, you still have ranged opportunities, but just going up and just beating the shit out of it felt really rewarding. Also want to say that I really did enjoy the combat escalation and pervading darkness that permeated this entire story, which brings me to my next spicy topic, which is Dragon Age Veilguard too goofy and not dark? One, when people were saying not dark enough, they were talking about, a lot of times they were talking about obviously Rook's character, which we'll go into, but some people, which this is how I could kind of tell who was just repeating what they heard a YouTuber say versus who actually thought these things. We're saying that the story itself wasn't dark. And that is batshit bonkers to me, because this game had some of the most fucked up side quests, and like the one quest in not Treviso, in Docktown, when you're uncovering about a dad and his son, and walking into that sacrifice room was just ugh. Also, the blight. Here I go again. The changes y'all made to the blight. I want to know the fuckers, the sick fucks that did this, because I guarantee you the people that made the blight sounds are the same sickos that stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning watching pimple popping videos. And I see you and I'm judging you because that shit was nasty. Like, I am such an auditory person, and that is so gross. It's so fucking gross, dude. Like, why you gotta do that, man? That's so nasty. That is dark, man. Even the blight storyline, Algernon versus Gillenane. Like, kind of a spoiler. You knew it was gonna happen eventually, but it's being, I guess, be iffy. But when Gillenane, it was such a cool juxtaposition moment, because these are, I mean, Gillenane and Algernon basically reminded me of the same tone deafness that gaming CEOs have, in which they think they're gods, but they're actually the biggest pieces of shit but they're too stupid to realize it. That's them. But what was originally interesting is that in part with Algernon and Gillenane, when she's laying on the floor dying, for the first time in the entire game, we see that mask of his break, where he looks genuinely devastated and confused and sad, and he kind of loses sense of reality, and that's ultimately what becomes his downfall. But the very last thing she says to him isn't comforting him, isn't saying goodbye, it's saying, we had so many plans. Like, there was no humanity in this person at all, versus Algernon had a smidge of it, like a little glimmer of it, and that was a really interesting small detail that I enjoyed. But it was a dark game, y'all. So let's talk about the darkness regarding Rook. For me, I feel like Rook is getting a little bit of the writer treatment, and if you haven't watched my Mass Effect Andromeda video, you should, because you might like it if you like this video or not. I don't know, I'm not your mom. But people really struggled with Ryder for the same reason of, oh my god, Ryder doesn't take anything seriously, bring back Shepard. And I feel like a lot of people that were like really viciously angry about it completely missed the point entirely. Ryder was never supposed to be like Shepard. Ryder was a kid, a young adult that had no illusions of any type of leadership. They were there with their dad. The dad was supposed to be the big one, and the dad forcibly put the kids in the shadow. So like, they didn't really have the means to develop that. So yeah, when Ryder was flirting or trying to come up with decisions, it was immature at times, because they were immature. And I feel like there's a really strong parallel with Rook, because there were so many times where Rook would say a voice line and I'd be like, oh, I said that in my head as a response, so that's how I would respond. Because it was kind of the same thing. Rook was never supposed to be the leader of this, it was Varric. Rook was not prepared to be the leader of this, and the conversations we have with Varric, it was very much felt that Rook was just another piece of that team. It wasn't like a focal piece of the team, it was just another piece of that team. And because of that, never had to really explore the leadership. So this is a character that's learning as they go, which means sometimes they're gonna say the wrong thing, sometimes they're gonna say the incredibly right thing, sometimes they're going to mess up, sometimes they're gonna focus on the wrong thing. And I think a lot of the middle, the laughing, the purple options reflected that really well. And people were saying, well, it's the same thing. Yeah, sometimes if you choose the angry option or the forceful option, sometimes it was very similar, but sometimes it really wasn't. And I feel like that's not being talked about, because I believed everybody saying they were all exactly the same. So this last playthrough, I did a lot more of those options, and I was like, oh, I feel like an asshole. Like, you're not evil, but you're an asshole. You're definitely an asshole, and that's not a type of character I want to play.
Yeah, I'm just being an asshole about it.
But I feel like Rook has an innocence to them that I think that's why we saw a lot of very particular type of content creators be vehemently against this character, because as we see with a lot of the really odd conversations around characters and art style and direction, they are very much boys, not men, boys wanting to live through fan fiction, which is great. Games are that. Games are a way to do that. But they're imposing everything they want onto that and expecting everyone else to be on board. And then when other people ask for that same respect, they're like, no, only me. And it's fucking weird, bro. And I feel like because they have that fantasy, they don't want to be reflected back their own shortcomings. And I think sometimes Rook's shortcomings might have hit a little bit close to home. Or I could be wrong. That's just an opinion. Notice how I don't say anybody individual, because we don't attack individuals here. We're better than that. And I hope you are too. And if not, you should look into that, because that's a little bit weird too.
Stop it. Get some help.
But it's bizarre how much people, like the disparity. Although, you know what I was looking at? I was looking at the sales numbers alone, and they are definitely within their margin. I don't know where this narrative came that it like drastically was below. Like, it definitely didn't hit the top, but it was within the margin. You usually have your benchmark, but then you'll have a margin of error, and they're within that. But it was so funny because anybody I've talked to, even people that like really hated Inquisition, they had a really good time with it, versus other people that I know have 100%ed it. We'll say Sophia, she did not like it. And I think it's important to listen to the reasons why people don't like things. Maybe not take what they're saying at face value, because sometimes people are human and they sometimes speak out of a place of hurt. But I think that it is important to listen to what people are interested in, because these are games that are supposed to reflect you, at least in part. And you know, listening to those players, listening to all players is really, really important. But I think it's important to express critique respectfully. And if you don't know how to express critique respectfully, stop making it everybody else's problem. That is an emotional intelligence thing, and you should absolutely work on that, because if you don't, you're going to have a very, very, very hard life. So that's all I'm going to say on that. The last little nitpick I had was with Taash. This is the one that's going to get me canceled. Okay. I've said this before on my channel, so this isn't new. I don't enforce it because I've never, I don't know, maybe it's the tism, but I've never really felt bound by my body. You could call me a he, she, they, it, fuckhead, whatever you want to call me. I don't really care. It's just a body. It's gonna decay and become food for the animals underground. It doesn't matter. My body doesn't matter. What I look like doesn't matter. None of it fucking matters. And so I do identify as non-binary. I've said that, but I don't care, because that's the beautiful thing about when you really know who you are. It doesn't matter what the people around you do. But I recognize that not everybody feels that way, and I want to respect that, because your feelings are valid. For me, I never really cared. But because I do identify that way, I was excited for Taash, and then I wasn't. I was excited for Taash because I really loved the Qunari characters that we saw in the animated series on Netflix, which you should definitely go watch that if you haven't. I think it's Dragon Age like Absolution or something. I'm trying to say this in a way that's not gonna flare up some anger, but I felt like the way the storyline progressed about this character's identity was such a disservice, because no matter what is going on in your noggin, there's always more to a person than just one thing. And I really felt like there was no expansion on this character beyond that one storyline beat. Like, I felt like with Dorian, I feel like Dorian's story was a really good example on how to do this well. There's an entire even mission about this where you meet his father and you hear about what his father tried to do to him to make him to stop being gay. Like, it was a very big storyline, but that wasn't all that was to Dorian. Dorian shared his likes, his dislikes, his philosophy, he shared his wit, and Taash just shared that. And I get it's important, but it felt out of place. And a part of the reason it felt out of place is because everything revolved around that, including when you would walk in with different characters having conversations, like the conversation between Taash and Nev was overly aggressive. And I get when you're in a defensive state, that is a very realistic conversation, but this is a video game, and I feel like if you want to deliver that, you need to, it's important to do it in a way that feels organic. It feels like an actual conversation you would walk in at, and it just was so abrupt. And yeah, I'm gonna be that guy. I understand that some people do not feel this way, especially with the Tuesday, which I don't think people realize that the Must Be a Tuesday is the pop culture reference. But most things in the Dragon Age Thedas universe have names that are unique to that universe, and that helps kind of keep that immersion and separate the real world. And with the big focus on Qunari versus Ravani culture, I thought it would have been really cool to have this character use terms from Ravani culture. And I feel like when that sit down happens with Taash's mom, and the first thing Taash says is, "I'm non-binary," and then gets really defensive immediately, it didn't feel authentic. And maybe that's a me issue. 4 times playing through this, and it still feels just odd. And it doesn't feel like I'm like, "Oh, fuck that." It's just, it feels like such a disservice to the character, because there was so much potential there that I feel like with the production changes and everything that was happening behind the scenes, I feel like they did the best they could, but it just sucks because you think about what it could have been. Sorry, I got hiccup. But what it could have been, and I don't know, it was such an interesting storyline with the fire breathing, and I would have loved to see that explored more. And I would have loved to see, I don't know, all the interactions that this character had with others just fell flat. With the exception of, if you're romancing Emmerich, Taash's line in reaction to knowing you guys are together is probably one of the funniest interactions in the game. It's absolutely hilarious. But I wanted to see more, and that's just a personal preference. This is not a statement against anything like that. It's just what I think could have been better. That's all. And I think that's fair and valid, and I think I'm portraying that I'm not saying this from a malicious place, and if not, I'm always happy to clarify, but I was disappointed with that. But all of the disappointments that I've shared, it still wasn't enough to dampen my excitement of this game. I really thoroughly enjoyed everything about Dragon Age The Veilguard. It is the first Dragon Age that I immediately, after wrapping the credits, immediately jumped right back in and started a new playthrough and didn't feel any weightness about that. Even on my 3rd playthrough, I wasn't skipping cutscenes or anything. Like, that is a good sign of connection, and that's what I wanted in a Dragon Age game. I have been wanting this new game forever, and I love this series. It has a very special place in my heart. So I am personally very content with what we got. Sad not to, it's sad when you think about what could have been if the layoffs didn't happen and if BioWare was self-published. But here we are. I think they did a great job, and I hope that the team is proud, and I hope that the team that was a part of it and wasn't still a part of it by the time it launched also feel proud. And honestly, I hope this is the last game. As much as that kills me, because it's one of my favorite franchises, I hope this is the last game because I feel like it ended on a really good note, and I think there's a way to expand this through DLC. Do surprise DLC in 5 years. That'd be crazy. 4 years, whatever. Comics, keep going with the comics and the books. Those have been very enjoyable. Season 2 of the show. Like, there's so many different ways they can keep this universe going without risking jumping the shark and letting the franchise fizzle out on a bad note, which we are seeing with other games when leadership doesn't know how to, cut the cord. And that can destroy franchises and destroy the memory of those franchises. So I enjoyed it. If you haven't played it yet and you're interested, I would say kind of ignore a lot of the hate. I've talked to so many people that weren't gonna play it because of all the conversations online, and then when they did, they were like, "Holy shit, this was amazing." So just judge for yourself. Reviews, find the reviews of people that have similar interests to you, and then still recognize that reviews, no matter what, are subjective because they are opinions. The difference is with somebody that is knowledgeable in reviews is how to be objectively subjective. There is parameters that to hit and how to hit them. And no, but at the end of the day, it is still at root their opinion, and you might feel differently. So I hope you give it a shot if you haven't. If you did play it, let me know your thoughts. And if you didn't like it, that's okay. Share those thoughts too. I didn't make the game. I got no skin in this race. I just like talking about Dragon Age, and I want to hang out. Ciao. So yeah, thank you so much. This is a long video, but I appreciate letting me geek out about Dragon Age. I very much enjoyed my time. Very much enjoyed Rook. Rook and Hawk, I think, are my 2 favorite protagonists, which I know is spicy. The spicy meatball. That's the spicy meatball. Like, but I get it. But it was great. I'm already planning my 5th and 6th playthroughs. I can already tell. And yeah, I hope you give it a shot if you haven't already. You've been here a minute. So thank you for being patient while I ramble. I tried notes, and apparently that did not hold because I didn't look at them even once. But shout out to the hair physics too. The true star, the true game of the year is the hair physics. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate you, and I hope you're taking care of yourself and your new year has started off on a right foot. And if not, we're still early on. Don't let that color the rest of your year. I hope you're prioritizing that self-care and you are drinking that water and you are always leading with your kindest foot forward. I'll catch you next time, friends. Bye.